Hey guys, J77 here doing a flashback review of one of the very only two films that I saw that were like stand-up comedies type films. And I'm gonna talk about both of these films. This one this week, the other one next week. One of them happens to be The King of Comedy, which I'm talking about now, and the other one was Run Tell That. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I was a little bit in doubt of seeing these movies, but I actually liked the stars that was in it, and I liked their comment, how they go about doing their comedic stand-ups, because I can actually relate to a lot of what they're saying, including Martin Lawrence and D.L. Hughley, as well as Steve Harvey. So I can actually look at this and knowing that, if they do the same thing that I knew when I seen their earlier work, I will have fun with it because it does speak to my own personal experience. So I went to see this film, which is a stand-up, which was done surprisingly by Spike Lee, because Spike Lee to me doesn't do comedy. I mean, there's a lot of films he does, but it's always mostly drama driven. So when I heard he did this film, it did caught me a little bit by surprise. He's the one responsible for this film, Kings of Comedy, a guy who did Do the Right Thing in Spike Lee and other films that I'm aware of. He's the one that brought it to the forefront. So it was a little bit surprising to me that he would do a movie like this, but he did it, and I'm actually glad he did. Let me go on and say that you have four of the brightest stars back who did this movie slash stand up. You had the host, which is Steve Harvey. He was funny when he opened up. He was very, very good, and he had bits and pieces. He did the beginning, he did the middles, and he also did the last bit, and then they just basically went to credits. But when he was there, he was very, very good. He was very, very energetic, and I was cracking up when he was on stage. So it really set the mood very, very nice. The only problem I had with when they did the stuff, they tend to cut into the crowd sometimes. I don't want to see the crowd. I want to see the comedians. I know they want to give the reaction towards these guys are enjoying themselves, but seeing it from live is a little bit different than seeing it from the screen. I really didn't want to see the crowd as much. I really wanted to see the stars, the comedians that was doing their things. But when he was there, it was kind of fun. He brought up some good issues with the Titanic back then. He brought that up. He brought up the Ray Caruth fiasco when he got caught. It was kind of like old school comedy, but it was fun comedy. It was actually solid comedy, and we understood what he was saying because the stuff that he was talking about, we thought about it at one time. At least I thought about it at one time. How stupid can you be? You're wanted from the cops. Why would you go to another state where they can find you? So that was one of the things. He brought up the Titanic skid, and it really set the mood very, very well. Then it went to D.L. Hughley. He was good. He was more old school. I was a little bit surprised how old school he was with some of his comedic bits, but it was a lot of old school, but it was fun old school. I mean, it was stuff that reminded me how my family was and how a lot of family was as I grew up with, and it really does show the difference between different cultures and how they go about living things. There was one thing that did bother me. I'll get back to that real quick, but I want to try and give you guys a little brief. You have Cedric the Entertainer. He was the next up in line. You did have Hughie come back. He did his best comedic role, and it was kind of a fun comedic role because I'm glad he came back. He brought up the old school, and he brought up rap and stuff, and he also brought up some very good music, great music, music that I knew my mom listened to, and it made me feel good listening to it. So that was very, very good. Then he brought out Cedric the Entertainer, and I didn't know how I was going to react to him. I didn't know too much about him. I heard of him from, the Def Comedy Jams, but I didn't know how he was. And he was fun. There was some that missed with me, but the stuff that he hit me with, it was fun to hear. It was fun. It was some fun bits. He did the Matrix thing, which was kind of hilarious how he did it. He talked about the hockey thing and and how we were dominating, how black was dominating sports. It was kind of fun to listen to. But overall, if there was only a weakness in out of the 4 stars, he was pretty much my little weakness because he really only because I didn't really know who he was and I never really followed him too much like I did the rest. I have heard about the El Hoogly. I heard of Bernie Mac from Def Comedy Jam. I still remember the late Bernie Mac from Def Comedy Jam when he had the pants on. So I actually knew who he was from those old days when Martin Lawrence was actually hosting the show. So that's how I knew who Bernie Mac was, because I never forget the pants he wore when he came on Def Comedy Jam. I'll never forget those pants. Oh my God, they were crazy. But his comedic role was even crazier because he had me rolling. That's how funny he was when he was in Def Comedy Jam, and I was actually happy they got him back because he was the icing on the cake for the show. Let me go on and say that Dio came back. He said he was going to come back and do the other shows again. He got on to one of the audiences who briefly walked out. I don't know if that was planned or not, but he walked out. He came back, and he just got on because he took the guy's coat and he started just ripping on him. It was the funniest thing in the show. He just riffed on him. The same thing, by the way, with D.L. Huger. He did the same thing. He was just more drawn out. He picked on everybody on the audience, and that's been his stick for a while because I know he did that a lot with other shows that he have done. But for this one, it was more like, just picking on this one guy. And he started talking about the church thing, and I started laughing because the stuff he was saying, I actually really did experience. One person doing my when I was a little kid in the Baptist church, so I can easily relate to that. And I was just laughing my ass off when I started hearing it. But but the icing on the cake was when Bernie Mac came on the screen. And he from the very start, he just went bananas, and I was just laughing at almost all the stuff he was talking about. I think there was only one, and that was at the ending, as when he was closing it out, when he was using the F word and how the F word was used as a common language. It wasn't that great, but it was the perfect ending of that whole show, and I enjoyed watching that. It was hilarious. Now let me tell you this: this film. It didn't break any big records. In fact, I think it made its money, but let's be honest, stand-up comedy, if it makes $2 million in the box office, that's a huge success because it's not much of a budget can do. Yes, you have the stage and stuff, and this was pretty much, they was on tour, and this is what happens where they actually film. So it made $3 million the opening weekend, and to me that's a huge success for stand-up comedy, because stand-up comedy, you're never going to see stand-up comedy break the $100 million record out. It never happened, and even with with all the star power it has, to see that happen, that would be a huge mega hit. And you probably see other stand-up comedy movies come out more and more often. But surprisingly, it did very well, and I'm actually glad that it did well. Because let's be honest, after that, Spike Lee had a big drought. He had another film coming out not too far apart from this one. It's called Bamboozle, and Bamboozle was just something that people don't like to talk about too much with that movie. But in terms of this movie, as for the critics, I'll be very honest with you. It all depends on your taste. It all depends on your taste, and it really all depends on your moral. And if you have a certain moral that you look for, or a certain taste in comedy, that will determine whether you like this comedy or you hate this comedy. Because it did have a very mixed review from both the critics and the fans of these comedians, and largely because, like all comedy like this, it does tend to go over the edge a bit in certain of the comedies. Like Bernie Mac, his most of his comedy sticks was about how he feels that we should, beat our kids. Now, a lot of people in the audience, when I was in the theater, laughed. They know he was not, very serious about it, but he kept playing that out, and it was basically that whole stick was about he whipping his ass, and how he will not let his kids stomp on him. Now, if you grew up in a certain family, especially a certain family, you know those who lived in the South, because my grandma's from the South, and you grew up with a strict code of discipline, you will understand where he's coming from. It may not be acceptable now, but back then in the 80s, my grandma had no problem whipping me if I got out of line. That's just how the household we lived on. We can't, of course, they can't get away with that now. There's new rules, there's new laws, and new strict laws, and these are laws set for a good reason. And I don't regret to making these new laws. But he brought it up, and there were some people in my theater didn't laugh at that. They actually thought it was offensive. There were other people who just laughed it off as nothing being joked. But that was one of the main things for most of the people who was criticizing this film, why they gave it such a low rating, because of how he glorified it, which he didn't. Let's get that clear. He did bring up some other issues, but it was mostly, his stick was mostly on that one scene. Another thing about it is, and this is where D.L. Hughley nearly lost me a bit. I thought he went a little bit over, and he brought up a skit where he will not pick up his wallet because he's afraid he's going to get shot like a half dozen times. This brought a very somber into the whole. I mean, it was the whole theater was packed, and it was like, that's not good. And there's a reason for that. It's because, this movie was released just a few months shy from the Doobie Howler shooting, where a guy got shot numerous of times, and because the cops thought he had a gun, and the reality is he had a wallet. And there was still a lot of outrage that the police officers were acquitted of this crime. I was not happy about it. Even though I hear both sides, I was still not happy that they used that much excessive force for one guy. If they felt that, especially when all those police officers was telling him, they could have easily subdued and realized that this guy didn't have a gun. But that's just my own opinion. I'm not going to get too far deep into it. But he did bring that up as a joke. I don't know if he really meant for it to be a joke or not, but it really gave a somber, not a good move to do that. And even though he recovered on that and he found a way to make it into something of a lighthearted joke, there was not too many people who was chuckling on it. It was like, okay, well, move on. And when he once that whole bit was over, he basically quickly changed the subject, which I was actually glad he did, because there was something. Because I wouldn't think that would have fly too well with a lot of people if he would have kept on at that one bit. But that was the thing that a lot of critics nailed on and just simply thought it was out of taste, out of character. There were other critics. I know the Daily News liked it. Like the movie. There was critics out there who thought it was a good movie. I thought it was a good movie. It actually was a good comedy relief. I didn't look for this to be a masterpiece. There were a lot of people who thought that Spike Lee should be ashamed of himself to show this kind of movie. But I think that, to be all fairness honest, this is a comedy. This is like a stand-up comedy. And you have to really, and I always say this with any kind of comedy like this, there are certain comedies you have to relate to what the person is saying. If you can't relate to them, you're not going to laugh. Most of my comedians, Richard Pryor, Sam Catchin, Eddie Murphy, who I'm missing, George Carline, even Jeff Dukem. I can relate to what they're saying, so I will not get offended about it. So I understand their comic routine. I enjoy watching their comedy, and I won't get offended by it. There are other comedies that I don't watch, like Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy. I don't watch them. It's not saying they're bad, but it's just not my taste. I can't relate to, and that's the same thing with Kings of Comedy. It's just a matter of taste, really. That's all it is to it. You're either going to like the comedy or you're not going to like the comedy. But that's just my feeling on the issue. And I'm going to touch more on that later on down the road. But for now, this is why this comedy was more related towards me and why I like it. So I gave it 3.5 stars. It stays 3.5 stars. That's it. Until next time, guys, you take care.